Welcome to the GameDev.tv Community Podcast. I'm your host KB, and I would like to introduce you to industry professionals and people who successfully made their path to the video game industry. I hope that you will enjoy the podcast and get useful tips that will bring you closer to achieving your dreams. Now, let's get right into the podcast.
I started when I was in middle school. I started writing game stories and stuff like that. Then I didn't really decide what to do about game development, art, music, programming. Then I decided to study computer science to get into the programming field. Uh,
So did you always
that's
want
how.
to did you always want to make games like when you were younger?
Not really. I wanted to study astronomy, but
Okay.
in high school I changed my mind. Games were kind of important to me. They had this big impact on my youth and my
Mm-hmm.
early years. So, well, they helped me a lot. So that's why I decided to be a game developer to help other people the same way that the games I played helped me.
Okay.
Uh, then I was kind of confused. The game industry is overwhelmed me. Uh, I saw many things I could do. I could have artist, programmer, music composer, so many things, game designers. So I was confused. I spent about 2 years deciding what to do. Some of GameDev.tv courses, they really piqued my interest. So I got one of them,
Oh,
the
which one did you
Unreal
get?
Engine, the Unreal Engine C++ one.
Okay.
It was really interesting. Uh, as I went through, I began to understand the industry more and more. Uh, I began I began to branch out, learn more things. Then I decided to make a roadmap for other students, for people who want to learn game dev,
Mm-hmm.
who want to get into the industry. So I wrote a roadmap for gameplay programmers. It started with an introduction into the game industry in general, not just the programming part. They need to understand a little bit about the history, how game design evolved, how what exactly is game development. So after they went through that, they should learn a little bit about C++ and Unreal Engine, maybe from the documentation, the official documentations. Them. Then I recommended starting with the GameDev.tv courses, the Unreal Engine C++ one, and the Blueprint one to get into gameplay programming and send it a little bit better. Then they need to uh, get into the industry, so they need to learn more about how companies work, what are the different rules in game development, and which one suits them. So it was kind of successful, but doesn't some people want to learn more other things than programming and learn more things. Maybe they want to be indie developers with multiple skills and stuff. So currently, I'm working on a bigger roadmap about all the fields. Uh, it's not finished yet, but getting there.
I
So
know it takes
that's
a long time to make a game, but I'm glad you're getting there. Yeah. So let's dive deep first into like what really caught your attention of the game development scene. Was it like, so you grew up playing some games and it really meant a lot to you, so you decided, hey, instead of astronomy, I want to go make games, or was it just something we were more passionate about? Like, why'd you stop doing astronomy?
uh, I played my first game when I was 5 years old. It
Okay.
was the same. It was The Sims 2. I liked that it provided me with an alternative world where I can be everything I want. I can do whatever I want. I can control some people and have a decent relationships with other characters in the game. It wasn't just a game, it was an alternative life, which I kind of got lost in that game. When I was 12, I played Skyrim, so it had a big impact on me. Changed the
You
way
put
I look at life.
you put 500 plus hours in that game like I did.
Yeah,
It was such a good game. Yeah, I just couldn't get enough of the music, the ambience. Because before I never really liked Elder Scrolls games, like Oblivion. I just couldn't get into it. I don't know why. But then Skyrim, something about being a Dragonborn, something about the world and the music just caught me, and I just couldn't stop playing ever since.
and the exploration part, they did
Mhm.
good on building the world. So I was kind of writing some stories that I wanted to publish, maybe as a comic book or something. They were about some uh, science fiction space era, but comics and art wasn't really my thing. I wanted to implement these stories to have some impact on people the same way the games I played have had some impact on me. Uh, that's when I started to become a game developer. That uh, I saw it as the best way you can really touch someone. People watch movies all the time, watch shows all the time, read stories all the time, but nothing like games really touches people. Like you live there, you don't just read or watch. Or games immerse people. يعني
Yeah, they do
people
something
get
more
immersed.
powerful than any other entertainment. You actually are in the shoes of the character. You're not observing it, you're not reading it, you're there making the choices and you feel the impact of your choices. You heard someone, you're like, oh, I did that, not the character. So it's a cool thing because you can learn a lot from that, like games like The Traffic Human or God of Wars. And you can learn that like choices matter, or that you can learn from other characters like the God of Wars. Kratos character, people learn more about the father figure. Like, oh, I wish my dad connected more, but I see he was dealing with things. And it's just that's the power of games, in my opinion.
Exactly. Like Will Wright said in his masterclass that games are extension of our minds,
Mhm.
the same way that cars are an extension of our feet. Like when someone has an accident with driving a car, he says, "I had an accident, not the car had an accident." That's something I really found. It's a good example for games. Uh, I memorize that sentence every time I talk about video games.
I love that one. The
Uh,
games are an extension of our minds. It's really cool. Mhm.
yes,
And so then when you started to practice game development, this was like right at the end of like your senior year of high school.
uh, uh, probably in my first year in university. In high school, I was kind of busy studying for my senior year and stuff like that. So I had no time to practice game development.
Okay.
So
So it
as
was
soon
more
as,
in college.
yeah,
Okay. So then you went for what was your degree? It was computer science.
yeah,
So then you basically were doing like computer science stuff and then on the side, like on your own time, learning game development, or did you take courses in game development in school?
uh, they had some classes on game development, like studies things like computer graphics, OOB, artificial intelligence. These classes help me understand game programming better. And I guess this year I have a game development class that
Mhm.
will also improve my skills at game development. And uh, I take courses online, like the GameDev.tv ones.
So how do you get the most out of these courses and these classes? Like, how do you study efficiently? Like, how do you make sure you get the information and then say, hey, I actually know how to do it instead of, oh, I just saw it and I can recreate.
I like to pause the videos and
Mhm.
then start doing things my way. Sometimes I do things before I reach the lesson that teaches them, and I try to add my own style. Try to make the game more difficult. Like in the triplets one, I modified that line of code that controls the difficulty of the game, and I made it more difficult. Uh, I like to do that way. I always remember what I did, and when I make another game or another project, I memorize what I did before, and I uh, try to merge all the things I learned to create a better project or a combination of what the other projects I did.
Let's say you're doing a topic, let's say, I don't know, pointers, for instance, in programming, and you're not grasping the concept. Do you try to find different ways to learn it? Or are you like, how do you deal with obstacles in your learning journey?
I always have backup plans like there's the documentation for C++
Mhm.
and C++ course on Udemy that from beginners to beyond one. Uh, I ask my teachers in college about the topics that act as an obstacle to me. That way, I overcome these things. I don't really like to skip stuff because they usually I really meet them again. Well, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no, because it's just like sometimes when we learn things, like I have a difficulty sometimes with picking up some concepts. So it's always interesting to ask people like, oh, so when you learn something and you get it, cool and all, but what about when you get like a material, a lecture, and you're like, I didn't understand any of this, and you just keep reading and reading like documentation, you're like, I still don't get it, and like, what do we go through? So like, I know from time and time again, it's just maybe looking at different videos, maybe keep practicing every day, just to find a way to make it grasp, make it make sense. Because some people learn visually, some people learn better like from listening to stuff. Some people learn better from just doing it themselves. So yeah, interesting. And so then like so when you were in college, what was your main like goal? Were you trying to make a game at the end of the day? Were you just trying to get your degree? Like what's your main vision of like where you wanted to go?
Actually, my degree was like a tool to me. I want to work in the game industry and in a company like in studio like Bethesda.
Mhm.
I saw the job requirements for gameplay for the gameplay programmer job. They require a degree in computer science or mathematics. So it was like a tool to me that helps me get the job I want. And it, the graduation project, like this year, me and my colleagues are working on a game for our graduation project. So I guess it will help us a lot achieving what we all want. A job.
Okay. And so, did you feel like you got the necessary material to be successful in game development? Like, do you feel like you learn more from the college or from the courses you took out of the school?
Uh, they both helped shape my mentality and my mind. But I think I got what it requires before before I delved into game development. I have this wide imagination. I like to build stuff with my mind, like stories, activities. I like to try new things and do things other ways. Always find the most efficient way to do what's required from me.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Awesome. And I like that response because it's like, sure, people might have their opinions on like college is better, you don't need college, you know. But then it's like, well, why don't we take both? Like sometimes why don't you go to school but then learn some of the stuff outside the schools? That way you have this more like complete understanding of everything. Because then one teaches you a lot of the in-depth computer science stuff, and then one teaches you game development, and then you take what you learn from both, and you're set. I feel like that's what you've done. You've like taken from both areas, and it's allowed you to build this gameplay programmer persona, as in like, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing. I've gotten all the expertise from these other people, masters in the craft, and now I can do what I want to do and not feel like I'm missing out. Because sometimes you might get something you need in the game development course, but then you're missing like the further understanding of how programming works behind the scenes. And so then you feel like you have these holes, and then it builds up imposter syndrome, and you don't know what to do. So no, that's cool. I really like that answer. And I really like the fact that you've gotten good stuff from both areas, because you can always find good in areas. You can always find bad. It's just how your perspective, and then I guess we'd say the effort you put into what you're doing. So I want to also get into the question I asked you when you were like, "Hey, how can someone learn game development better?" And you were like, "Well, first we learn the history of game design and development." So how does that look like? Is that like you just going through the old games and be like, what worked, what didn't work?
Yeah, that's the point. Like we talk about older games and how people designed games and made them in the best games like Space Invader and Doom, the first games that shaped the future of games. And because when you understand the best and how other people did things, you know where where it came from and where it's going. Uh, Helps people think about their games like do they follow the best criteria, or they're just doing things randomly and hoping that it will work sometime. Uh, it's really important to know the best, to add to it the elements that will make your game better for the people for the future. Uh, some games have no soul because you
Mm.
just the, the player just moves, do stuff, but they're not really important. Like you will get bored of it after a few hours, few minutes even.
I've seen it a
Um,
lot from past movie games where like they should be good because it's got your favorite characters. It's maybe for instance Spider-Man 3, you're in New York, but it lacks the soul. It's like people didn't care about it. Spider-Man 2 is a good example of an older game that was based off a movie, and it got the soul of the movie and were so right. They like the game was amazing. But then you get games like the Iron Man movie where it's just like it should be cool, but they lacked what makes game like the game design fun, what makes a game entertaining. It's not just about shooting objects, because that can get boring and repetitive really quick. There's got to be like reasons for why you're doing it. So I love that you said that like some games don't have a soul, even though they should. It's just they were just made like a pipeline, like make this, make that, go send it out. It's like no, games need more than that. There's got to be something that captures something when you're playing a game. That's what I think when you're making games. I don't think they should. For me, games are more about the story part. I'm more of storytelling games. I do enjoy some of the games like Fall Guys, where you just have fun with people and play. But there are some times where I just can't get into certain games because I'm like, it's just not fun for me. It doesn't fit my criteria of like what is fun. But yeah, no, I like that response. Do you know, so like how can someone avoid having a game like that? Is it just like having the right purpose of why you're making games, or having the right team? Like how can you avoid making a game that has no soul?
I guess there are two ways to do that. The first thing is to play the game you're making. If you see a reason for everything you're doing in the game, like you should go there to do this, to achieve this, the game is clear and understandable and fun. But without a reason for everything you're doing, stop there, pause the game, and say, why am I doing this? So the first thing to do to give the game a purpose is to give it a reason. The second thing uh, is make it an online game. People like to play with their friends. Uh, I think online games with friends are always fun,
They are, yeah.
no matter how boring they are, they're always fun. So making a game online is the fastest way. The hardest way is to give a reason to everything the player is doing. And and make it more immersive for the player. People like to get attached to characters in games like a game like Mass Effect. Uh, People got attached to all the characters in the game. They get sad when a character dies.
Mhm.
And they get sad when someone in the game gets hurt, someone who's not even real gets hurt, and and people get hurt too. So someone achieved that, then their game is successful, making the game immersive. I mean,
Mm. No, 100%. Because it's you have to give the player something to lose so that they get an experience. Or like, okay, if I don't do this right, if I don't win this level or something, I lose the ending. I lose characters like fell in love with. I lose like maybe what I thought I could do. Like some game people play games with the hardest difficulty just to see if they can push the boundaries of what they're capable of. So, I like that. And then also want to get into, you said you study from how like game designers think, or how like past ones thought, like Will Wright and all those other ones. So for instance, you say reading books, articles, GDC, but how do you take like the information you take in and then apply that to game design? Do you take your notes? Do you like analyze it later? How do you take that information and make it useful?
I attach them to the games I play. Like when you read something in a book and you memorize that moment you had in a video game that had the exact same design concept written in the book, uh, it sticks into your mind. You always remember that. Then when you're making a game, you say, I want to do this gameplay mechanic to be like that game which used that design concept that I read in that book. So it all gets attached together.
Okay. So what advice have you received from like some of these books or GDC that you find most valuable? You take a second to think about it, but like maybe a few examples of like, hey, this video was very helpful, or this book and this line helped me a lot.
Uh, the websites, lectures, and masterclass are really helpful resource to study game design from. Uh,
I really love that masterclass, the Will Wright one. It was really well done. And I thought it was a really good way to explain like game design, what games can be like for people. It's like sometimes you don't even have to make a game with a story. Just make the tools so they can make the story. And then you have these like crazy events in Sims where like, oh, this happened to this family, or I'm gonna see what happens if I put all these people in like a house and then like close the doors and then they can't escape, and see what the characters do. And it's just so cool. And people will share it on a community, and the game itself will build up community, and then the players in the community will basically set themselves off with the game and basically do all the work. It's like you give them all the tools and then they just work with it, and you don't have to do anything, which I think makes a really good game last longer. So like nowadays, people, the way the industry is working, people more like a live service, free to play. You play the game for like 5 years, and we'll just continually add stuff you can buy to support the game. Because nowadays it's like harder for industries to be like, I'm going to put all this time and money into a game that only sells for $60, and then so it's like it's interesting. But I feel like his way of thinking helps you make a game that has a soul, but also like doesn't lose itself when it's trying to get live service or trying to like continually provide content for players, even though the game's been out for like 4 years, 3 years. So that's an interesting way to think about it. And I do like that master class. I recommend it for everyone who wants to get more into game design, because we teach you programming, we teach Blender, we teach art and all these different things. But sometimes the idea of game design kind of gets like it's just like put there maybe one or a few lectures, but it's never like deep dive like what Will Wright did. And so I was also curious, what do you think, in your opinion, would make for a great like good game design? Do you think it's caring about more the gameplay, caring about the story? Because I know different industries like Sucker Punch focuses mainly on the story, where like Ubisoft cares most about the gameplay. Like, what do you think, in your opinion, is like a good way to go, or is it just depend on what game you're making?
I think that the player's relationship with the game characters is the most important things. Like people need to learn to communicate. Some people don't really know how to communicate with other people. Some people are introverts. I guess I'm kind of talking about myself.
Okay.
Uh, so when you give them characters in games and some events, and they react to these events with these characters, and these characters react to your reaction to that event, whether they like it or they hate it, you start to get attached to the game. It looks like real life. You can experience what you can't experience in real life in that game. You learn how to communicate, how to be useful to the community, how to be a better friend, a better father, like God of War, a better son, a
Hmm.
better leader. It teaches you all that helps you be a better person. That's when a game is perfect to me. It's really about real life. It's more about real life than a virtual life. Um, Realistic relationships with the characters in the game helps people out, and some people, and I think I'm talking about a huge version of the gaming community, uh, like to get attached to have relationships with the game characters.
Again, that's like the one of the most important things about storytelling in any medium. It's the characters. You can make the coolest environment ever, the coolest world, have the coolest gameplay, but if you don't care about the characters, there's no like somebody won't finish a book if the characters aren't like compelling enough. Somebody won't finish a movie if the you can have sound effects and all these cool stuff, but unless the movie's kind of built for that, like just to be a goofball movie, you won't capture people's attention, or it won't be memorable, or it just won't hit what you thought it was. It's like, oh, but this setting's cool. It's like, yeah, but we're here for the characters. We want to either feel inspired or get lost or jokes or just be around some type of setting with characters that just make me want to watch what's going on and get glued. It's like why reality TV is so popular is because people just get fixated on a certain person and what they're doing. And usually it's because someone's doing something you wanted them to do, but you were too afraid to do it in a weird way. Or you see yourself like growing, like say you're younger and you like look up to these characters and say, I want to be a hero like that. And I want to follow his journey because then maybe one day I could be that person. That's what gets especially kids like interested in certain characters. It's like, yes, that's or it's just so cool. You're like that character's cool. I want to be cool. I love this character and I want to see them win. So it's interesting, like the different dynamics for game development. So we can go on and on about technical stuff, programming. Then you have to go into the art. Okay, and then we have to decide how we have to get the art into the game. And then there's storytelling and the characters. Right, like people would I think starting to realize they're saying like game development is actually harder than rocket science because it's just so complicated. That they're like nowadays when you say oh it's easy as rocket science, you gotta say it's easy as game development or it's something like that because it's just like game development to get everything right like you don't understand, like so many games have like gotten most things right, but they fail at one part, and then the game just does okay. It's like, dang, you were so close, and you have like hundreds of people working on it for many years. Who would have thought that games would be one of the hardest things to make?
There are also some exceptions. Some games get really successful without having these elements, like hack and slash games and mindless shooter games, like
Yeah, but that's hard because they built a base like a community already. Like Call of Duty wasn't always the way it was. Like it was okay, like, at the time it was good, like a good World War II story. But now it's become something else, and it's only survived because of like the brand recognition and the community behind it. And so it's hard because again, it's like the industry is changing. So game developers have to kind of change the way to make games. And now it's become like pump it out. And so it's like, how do we ensure that these games can still be have the soul and not get lost with live service? And I don't know the answer to that because I mean, I don't know. I really enjoy Fortnite, and I think Fortnite it's a free game, and it seems like the money they get from there they give back to the game developers. So somehow they did something right, and so it's like, how can we? But I guess some people would say different seasons they lose their soul, and I think they actually gain. There's like, so I don't know. I guess it's all personal opinion, but make the game for that you want to make for yourself and for the people you want to play. I think people get lost and they try to make a game that will make the fans happy, but then they don't know who exactly their fans are. So it's like find the people that you want your game and just make it for them. Listen to their feedback and then take it in and be like, hey, I don't really like that. You guys like it. Does it align with the vision, the soul I have for the game? Because if not, you might lose your soul. So another thing I've noticed is you can have a game come brand and then you lose yourself over time because you listen too much to them or you didn't listen to them. So it's a lot of like leadership and like listening to your audience to really get to where you want to be. Now that's a I don't even know if you've dealt with this, but like when you're trying to learn how to make a game, how do you know the audience you want to make the game for? Or do you just make the game you want to make?
I haven't really made full game yet, but working on my graduation project, we're still
Hmm.
in the design era the game.
Hmm.
So we're working on a hack and slash game. So
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about your
that
game. Like what's the plan? What's this project? And then all the little details.
uh, so it's a science fiction game in a million year in the future where silicon-based life forms take over the galaxy. The player is a silicon-based, carbon-based hybrid. Uh, so he roams the galaxy, slaying some silicon-based aliens, fighting different bosses. The game gets harder. Uh, uh, we'll try to give the players some unique environment, colorful areas, and it's just a graduation project. So we'll we'll just try to show off our skills, our programming skills, our design skills. It's not really planned to impress everyone. So that's the only experience I have in game design.
Okay. And so I like your roadmap that you built. So basically with this roadmap, is it like from a beginner's point of view or just like you've never learned anything? So it's like, hey, we're gonna watch videos, we're gonna watch the history, then we're gonna pick a game engine, and then you say you learn with Unreal Engine site and GameDev.tv tutorials. So when you build this roadmap, how long is this roadmap supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a year's worth of work, 2 years, a couple months?
And the one I made it to be kind of quick to help us.
Okay. It's very interesting response because first of all, the sleep, I never really had anybody say that in the way you did, which is like, hey, when you sleep, oh, I think someone's hold on one second. Actually, give me 1 second. I got so my sink's a little messed up. I gotta get fixed. back. Got some sync problems, but okay. Yeah. So what were we talking about? Games, design. Well, yeah, sleep. It's important to get sleep. It's important to take care of your health. But I like that you said it takes you longer if you take less sleep. And that might actually be another problem because you can't remember everything that you studied. So what are some other tips? Because I'm curious if there's other things you know that can help you learn more. Like, is it study less instead of and then just sleep more? Like, is there because people like to do say more is better. Like, still study 6 hours every day, but then it's hard to stay consistent. What is your thought on that? Like, how do you stay consistent in your work?
To get study more efficiently, you need to study twice a day when you first wake up and right before you sleep. Studying in midday isn't really useful because it gets really busy midday, so you can't focus uh, on your studying. You can't really uh, get the most of it in midday. So you will need to study when they wake up and before they sleep. That way, they will memorize about most of it, about everything. Um, that's it. That's how we will get most of what they study.
I never heard anybody say don't study midday, but I've heard of study in the morning and I've heard, study at night, but never, like you said, both times. So you do like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, or is it 4 hours each?
Uh, no, 3 hours in the morning, uh, maybe from 9 a.m. to 12, and study. It's not really, most of the times it's not really an hour because you study before your sleep. So you get sleepy and you sleep thinking about what you studied. It's more of a revision about what you studied earlier that day.
Mm.
Uh, that helps you remember everything because you studied it earlier and you read it again. So you wake up, you remember what you last read before you sleep. So you use what you remember uh, that that morning to build up to what's coming next in the
Mhm.
course or in the book or whatever.
That's really good. So when you wake up, you do kind of like a maybe an hour review of the stuff you learned the day before, and then you start learning new stuff.
That's if I don't really remember what I did the day before, but I do remember. I don't need to do that. I just head straight on to the new content.
Okay. And then also, where's the line when you say like I've learned enough and now you're just working on your game, or you always constantly trying to learn new stuff each week and then also working a game at the same time? Is there like a difference between learning and then making the game, or is it all in one?
Uh, uh, I would I I've never been there before, but if I did, I'd work on the design part of that game I want. I write all the ideas in my notebook or something. See what I need to make that game complete. Like I need the menu, I need certain gameplay mechanics, uh, and sort of turns into a checklist. And I check everything. Like I learned that gameplay mechanic today. I learned how to make it. So check. I learned to make that check. When the list is complete, I start working on the game.
Okay. And so when you say you've checked it off and you learn that and you go in to make your game, let's say you don't actually understand what you need to do to make that part of the game, you just go back to the lesson and then do it simultaneously while you're working on the game.
Uh, yeah, like sometimes you need to get back to the course again to
Mhm.
watch that lesson again. Maybe you'll understand better, but there's a less efficient way that gets the job done, but it's kind of faster than getting back into the lesson and watching it again. Is you can keep trying to do that to make that gameplay mechanic uh, and it sometimes work after about 5 tries or something. Takes some time, but I think that teaches you that concept better than watching the lesson again. Like you failed to get it right the first time, so you know where you failed. So if you try to do it again in another game, maybe you know that this way won't work. So you know the right way because you tried. Trial and failure are really important to get everything right uh, in future games of work.
And how do you avoid like wasting time when studying? How do you make sure you aren't getting stuck in a section too long? Or do you just say, hey, this is how long it's going to take me. I'm going to take as long as it needs.
I take a break, probably a coffee break or something, 5 minutes, think about what I've learned. Uh, Sometimes when you try to comprehend that concept without watching the lesson or even getting close to any course or any resource you're learning from and you think about it, you start to tidy things up in your mind and you eventually get to the point where your mind is ready to understand what you didn't then understand the first time. So uh, it gets uh, it gets easier by the time. Like sometimes you have like this big gap, you don't understand that lesson completely, so you think about it. The next time when you get the same issue, you won't face that same block. There's another way too. You can watch other tutorials of other courses. Something might take what you uh, take that issue that you'll now understand because you've understand another concept that's kind of similar to the one you didn't understand. So it all gets together and you understand.
Okay. And is there any advice you would give your younger self based on the stuff you've learned now about how you study and how you learn that you would tell yourself so that you can be more efficient?
Yeah, I tell myself to start earlier and find a community earlier. Like I said before, I kind of was an introvert. I like to work alone. I didn't really open up to my friends about my passion, the uh, my the career I wanted for myself. But it really didn't help me. But when you talk to people, when you meet people with the same passion, people who want to work and face that career, you start to have some discussions. You listen to them, they listen to you. You get uh, you get the fastest way to achieve what you want to achieve. So I would have been a lot better at game development if I had a community back then, or at least some people, about two, three, four, five people that encouraged me that I could discuss game development with them.
Good point, because it's hard to know where you are if you don't have someone telling you like, hey, you don't fully understand this, or you could work better on doing this in program, or your art could be a little bit better. And if you just keep doing it on your own, sure, you keep sharing it to maybe online forums. It's like everybody might say like, hey, good job, you did this, but you can't really know where you can improve. And then you kind of get in this weird, I would call it like phase where it's just like you kind of feel productive, but you're not really improving or growing. You're just staying complacent. You just push stuff out to say, hey, I was productive today. And it's kind of hard because it's like that's why games development can be hard because you have to constantly be pushing your limits. And sometimes you don't want to. You want to stay comfortable. You're like, oh, I can work on this, and this is easy for me. I don't want to go do something hard today. I'm tired or I'm lazy. So how do you say, how do you keep yourself motivated, inspired to keep doing this? Do you ever have bad days, and how do you get through them?
I think about what I want to do in the future. I think about how games inspired me and the people that inspired me, my role models, and where they are now, and how many people they're helping. And I think about the people I could help if I could get to where I want faster. So that really helps me. Like game development is the only thing I want to work in. So if I'm lazy about it, then mm, what should I do? What's my purpose? Like I need to get off my bed and start learning something new. Like that's how I get there. I guess that's how I overcome my lack of motivation or
Mhm.
that learning block.
Yeah, it's a good way to get out of, off your bed and onto the computer and doing stuff. Because it's just, there's some days when it's tough. You like get motivated the last day before and you want to do whatever you want, and then the next day you're like, I'm tired. So it's like, do you have a set schedule routine to keep yourself from missing days?
Uh, Sometimes, not always. Uh, when I'm not really busy, like I'm in summer break now, so I'm not really as busy as college days. So I don't really need to set a timeline for myself. Like I wake up every morning, uh, I watch some videos, lessons, I study, I take a break, read a chapter of a book, and spend the rest of my day like playing games. And that's really important. Like I think playing games is more important than learning how to make games. Like uh, people don't really know how, yeah, how other games are made, or what makes a game enjoyable, or what really gets into their mind, what is their favorite genre of these things. They won't really be successful game developers. You need to play games to understand how to make games better, to understand some of the design concepts. Like you can read a book about game design and go on, and you can't implement that design concept the right way. But when you play a game that implemented that design concept, you know how how it's done in games, how it's done in the development stage of the game.
Everyone's gonna love that you said playing games is more important than learning how to make games, because they're gonna be like, oh, I can go play a lot of games. But no, it's true. To be able to understand, important dynamics of characters, you have to play a game that has that. To understand why gameplay matters, you have to play a game that where the gameplay is so well made. You're just having fun playing. You don't even care about the story. And then again, you have to play games where the music hits you. You have to play just a ton of different games also, because it just inspires you. When you see a great game, you're like, oh my gosh, I can make something kind of like that, but my own vision. And then maybe the world would love and enjoy that as much as I love and enjoy this game. So I like, that's actually where I'm gonna wrap it up, is just with that, basically saying play games, enjoy games, realize why you're in the industry anyways. You're making games, have fun, enjoy it. Don't beat yourself up. You have so much time to make the game you want to make, so much time to build a team, so much time to learn. Don't feel like you're pressured. Like, you have the time. And so then as we end this up, I want you to ask you if you can come up with a challenge for the GameDev.tv students, kind of like we have at the Edinburgh lectures, to get them to do something after this episode to help them move towards their goals. So if you can come up with a challenge, you can take your time too.
I guess my challenge is to create a new game genre. Like the industry needs new genres. Like the past few years, people got stuck in battle royale games.
Mhm.
Uh, we need new genres. We need to experience something new. Like we've been playing RPGs for ages now. We've been playing shooters for ages. Uh, playing adventure and action games for ages. We need something new. So I guess my challenge is to create something new, like take a genre or two, mix them up, add some gameplay mechanics that people thought that they won't fit in that game, and create a new genre and make your friends play it, see if it's fun, if it's enjoyable, if it's successful. Maybe the industry will benefit from the slightest and the smallest idea.
I think that's a genius idea. In fact, I think that question should always be asked: how can I create something that's not even new, like not even here yet? That's something totally new that can groundbreak the whole industry, do something like battle royales, completely change everything, change the way people make games. Because they went from Call of Duty having story to one day having a game with just battle royale, and I was like, wow, this is really. And I'm not gonna lie, I really love battle royale games if they're made right. Like I love the Call of Duty one, I love the Fortnite, but some of them too, it's just like it's all the same. Like you said, RPGs, we've been at RPGs since the beginning of time. So that's a great challenge. Yeah, so this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on the episode. I want to hand the mic to you to end it off, doing the last minute shout outs, quotes, tips, whatever you got. And thanks for coming on, and the mic's all yours.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, but I'm not so active in Twitter, but I'm mostly active in Facebook and LinkedIn.
Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. You can find all courses at GameDev.tv or in the show notes at a discounted price. Get started with your game development journey today.